Welcome back. So we have we've been making some good progress, and we are approaching the 2-month mark in your recovery journey. And I just want to congratulate you. You're 2/3 of the way through the program. Kudos to you. I love this work. I love seeing the transformation, and I'd like you to just kind of take a look back at who you were, 6-8 weeks ago, and notice the transformation, notice the changes that have happened in you as a result of doing a lot of these exercises, leaning into your relationship with God or your higher power. And how is that shifting and changing and shaping you? I want to encourage you to lean in on that because it's powerful. It's powerful. We have spent the last several weeks getting sober and healing our minds and reconnecting emotionally, connecting to our emotions and digging through some of our trauma and our pain. And now we move into more of our why, more of our identity piece. And I think it's really important that before we get to our identity piece, that we do look back and see those things that we've come through. What has been our biggest pain? What has been our biggest grief? What has been our biggest joy? Those are great questions to write down in your journal or as you're taking notes today. Like those are some important questions to sit down and really process. What are my top 5 or top 10 biggest joys in life? What are my top 5 or 10 biggest griefs in life? I think about it for me, like some of my biggest joys are my family, right? Enjoying my kiddos. Some of my biggest joys are like going on adventures. I love climbing mountains. I love enjoying nature and hikes and seeing the beauty of creation or a waterfall. Massive joy, right? What are some of my biggest pains in my life? Some of those have come from my family, right? Some of those have come and brokenness in my family. Some of those have come from brokenness in my heart, right? Addiction has caused me immense pain, and my own addiction especially. And what are some of those things that really impact who I am and what I believe about myself, about how I see the world? And but yeah, looking back, seeing what are those things that have brought me great joy and some of those things that have brought me great pain, because those are indicators. So we've been talking about emotions and indicators, right? And but those things do give us indicators as to why were we created. What were the gifts that God has put in us? And I think over these next few weeks, that's something that we're trying to dive into is who am I really under the mask of addiction? As we come out of the bondage of addiction, where am I headed? What's the destination? We don't just recover from our addiction, we recover to something. What am I moving towards in life? I'm not just running away from addiction. I'm actually need to have a destination that I'm running towards. Addiction, when we're in our active addiction, it really locks up our identity. It locks up who we are. And this process is about unlocking who we are and allowing those emotions and those things to come up again for us. The battle for identity. Addiction attacks our identity through shame. And I think about shame, and I think about how it impacts how we see ourselves. And that's a really great question to ask as well. What do I feel the most shame about? Maybe it's my addiction, but what's my number 2 shame, my number 3 shame? What are the ones that kind of lie below that? Culture adds false identities to our life, like success and image and performance and approval. So it's important to kind of look below the surface, look below those things. Our true identity is rooted in being loved. It's being chosen by God and being created with a purpose. And, I'm curious, have you ever felt like you were connected to your purpose? I've seen some people really come out of high school or college and go, wow, live on purpose for 2 or 3, 4 years. I know that's part of my story. Came out, lived awesome on purpose in a good space for the first probably 5, 6 years out of college. And then life began to happen, and I kind of brought my addiction back on board, and it began to crash. And so how do I return to find that purpose again? It's not finding a new job or a new career. It's about finding who I am on the inside. Identity precedes behavior. We act according to what we believe about ourselves. And so I want to say that again. Like, we act according to what we believe about ourselves, right? If I believe I'm a piece of crap, shoot, I'm going to act like a piece of crap. I'm going to be mean and ornery and not care about anybody else, right? But if I believe that I am really loved, I'm going to be pretty loving. I'm going to be pretty kind and caring because I know who I am. I'm loved. And even when bad things happen, I read it from a lens of love and go, oh, bad things just happen, right? But I'm going to overcome that because I have a source of love within me. And, but if I feel like I'm a piece of crap, then I'm going to view life from that lens and go, I'm going to be defensive and defiant, and I'm going to take advantage of people and exploit because I am, I feel like I'm a bad person inside, and I'm reading the world from a bad space. And somebody could be really nice to me, and I'm mean back to them. I act like a jerk because I'm living life through this lens that I'm a piece of crap. And it's important to kind of notice that. What is the lens that I'm reading my life out of? We act according to what we believe about ourselves. The greatest miracle of recovery is remembering who you are already. Who am I? I think a lot of times when I ask that question of myself or of someone else, we begin to kind of list off our roles, right? I'm a mother, I'm a dad, I'm a son, I am a grocery store clerk, I'm a banker, I'm a whatever, right? Like, we have a lot of things that we consider that we are. And oftentimes our addiction helps us to bring up multiple masks, right? I'm a tough guy. I'm a cool dude. I'm a nice girl. I'm a nice guy. I'm a mean guy, right? But those roles and those masks actually hide our true self. And not that our roles don't flow. I'm saying parts of our roles cover up or don't allow certain parts of our inner selves to show. And so another question to ask is, who am I without my addiction? Early in recovery, we often create an identity void. We don't know who we are. If I'm not an addict, who am I? Who am I? If I'm not the guy on the street, if I'm not constantly hiding my addiction or pretending that everything is okay, then who am I? And what is my role? What's my role in the family, right? Like, I've always been the problem child, or I've always been the perfect kid. Who's my role now if I don't continue to carry that label? Who am I? And so I want to encourage you to reflect on that this week, to also really begin to ask yourself, what are the things that I value? What are my values as a person? What gives me life? What makes me excited? What brings a lot of joy to me? What makes me want to dance? Is it this kind of music or that kind of music? What brings life to me? And then a third question is, what breaks your heart? What really upsets you? Those are incredible indicators to know a little bit of how you were bent or how you were made, or what are the things that shape who you are. For some people, human trafficking is a big piece of that. For some people, it breaks people's heart that, when people are in a car accident and so they become a paramedic, right? Or what are the passions and the things that drive who you are and who you would like to become? This is rediscovery, not reinvention. And so right now, you could pause the video, or this week, take a few moments and write down 3 words that describe who you are without describing your roles or the things that you do. Describe who you are. Our story and our pain shapes our purpose. The wounds you've walked through often point you to where you're being called to bring healing and life in the world. And I think that's really an important thing to notice, is we look back before we look forward. We look back and see the trajectory, because oftentimes in our pain, we're actually being pulled back in a slingshot and getting ready to launch into our purpose. Because God never wastes our pain, He redeems it. And, the pattern of a good story, the pattern of the gospel, the pattern of Jesus, is that, even the pattern of communion, when we take communion, is is that Jesus broke the bread, he blessed it, and he gave it, right? And oftentimes our brokenness sets us up to be blessed by God and find our healing and be sent into our purpose. And so, we can think of a lot of stories, but Joseph, what he said was like, what God meant for evil, what you meant for evil, God turned it around for good, right? The pain and the sadness of the betrayal of his family and the betrayal of a lot of people in his life set him up to be the Prince of Egypt. And so, thinking about that, like, your past is part of your setup for the future that God has for you. And, lean into that. That's super powerful. And you may not see it yet. You might still be in the thick of your healing process. And we can't see the resurrection when we're still grieving the death of what was, right? And it's important to not jump too quickly to the resurrection, but to actually process through. That's huge, absolutely huge. And so, I think about, one of the analogies that we talk about is like, Christ was in the tomb for 3 days. He was dead for 3 days, right? We say he died on a Friday, and the disciples were distraught. They had to enter into the grief of Saturday and really grieve the loss of their Messiah before they could enter into the joy of the resurrection on a Sunday. And you may still have a lot of grieving to do. Chances are most of us opening our trauma box over the last few weeks, we're not done yet. We've got a lot of work to do in there. But I want to remind you that you're getting set up to go into your purpose. And so our purpose doesn't have to be grand. Our purpose is using our freedom to serve others, right? Whatever that looks like. Freedom, when we're free from our addiction, we can actually notice the world around us and the needs. What are the needs in the world that speak to us, that we go, hey, I can fix that? Maybe it's cars, maybe it's houses. I don't know what it is, but there's a need that moves us that we go, hey, I think I can help with that. Our purpose doesn't have to be grand. It can be mentoring people. It can be helping one person. And so, the question I think we can ask ourselves is, what do I love to do? What injustice or pain stirs my heart to action? Where have I been really useful? Or other people are like, man, this guy's really good. If you need something done on your car, talk to this guy. Or you need something done this way, talk to this guy. This guy's a great listener over here, right? And people talk about you in good ways. What do they say? Here's the thing. When we're healed, and the healing is a process, I'm not sure that we'll ever get to that full destination, right? But I think there's more healed and there's less healed, right? But as we move towards more healed, we walk in more purpose. Our families and communities thrive. And that's what this program is about, is moving toward that purpose and walking and helping people to thrive around us, causing that flourishing to happen. And I don't want us to rush there, but I want you to know that it is there as we continue to process our past. And so you may notice even now that you need to extend your coaching beyond the next few months and really take some time and dig into your trauma so that you can begin to move into your purpose.